the left hemisphere is, in a way, only aware of, only interested in what can be made unambiguous and explicit, whereas the right hemisphere is capable of sustaining things that are on the surface of them perhaps opposites, but that coexist and need one another and are perhaps at the same time in different ways present in a situation. It's also much better at understanding the implicit. For example, language, some of it is very much a part of the left hemisphere. And what is very, very largely true is that speech, the articulation of speech is in almost everybody in the left hemisphere. But that's not the whole of language. And the most important part of understanding language actually is supplied by the right hemisphere. So the left hemisphere is a little bit like a computer that's been given the Oxford English Dictionary and a book of rules of syntax, and is trying to decode the message. Whereas the right hemisphere sees that the meaning of this is something that is not being stated, that is quite different. I mean, a very, very simple everyday example is if you're speaking in an auditorium and you say, it's very hot in here, and the left hemisphere is saying, he's pointing out that on a hot day in a room with a lot of people, it's getting warm. No prizes for that. But the right hemisphere understands what he's really saying is, could you switch on the air conditioning or open a window? So the implicit meaning is what the right hemisphere understands, only the explicit, the left hemisphere. Now, when you think about it, so much of what is truly important in language, even in everyday language, is metaphorical in nature, sometimes ironic, oblique. It may be as important what is not being said as what is being said. Poetry, in fact, is something the right hemisphere is much better at than the left. And that's because its linguistic capabilities are different from those of the left. The left are to do with narrowing down on a certainty. Well, the left hemisphere's whole raison d'etre, if you like, is to try to narrow down to a certainty, whereas the raison d'etre of the right hemisphere is to open up to a possibility. It's seeing other possibilities. It's capable of tackling things that this very arid, we must have it clear now, is it this or is it that, will never reach. You see, it's the insistence on clarity. And I think you should be as clear as the subject matter allows, but no clearer than that. And if you try to make it clearer, you are now moving into error. You're moving away from truth towards falsehood. And the really big questions are of this nature.